In the dim glow of a nearly abandoned skyscraper, a man once worth billions stood trembling beside a trash bin, his entire empire gone in a single night. But just as he was about to walk away from everything he'd ever built, a soft voice echoed from the darkness. "Sir, you forgot this one paper." The billionaire froze. That single sheet crumpled, stained, almost thrown away, would decide whether he'd rise again or disappear forever. Before we reveal how this one forgotten paper changed his life, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Hopeful Stories so you never miss the stories that remind you. Hope always finds a way. Jonathan Hale had once been a man whose name echoed across boardrooms, financial magazines, and luxury events hailed as the visionary billionaire who built. It hailed innovations from a dusty two-room garage to a global powerhouse. He believed nothing in his life could ever collapse, until one brutal night proved him painfully wrong, stripping him of everything he had ever achieved. It began with a catastrophic market crash, one that none of his advisors triggered by a fraudulent report released by rivals hungry to dethrone him, causing investors to panic and pull their support faster than he could even issue a statement. Within 6 hours, Jonathan watched his company's shares fall like wounded birds from the sky, saw years of savings evaporate, properties frozen, partnerships terminated, and media painting him as careless and incompetent. By midnight, his board voted him out as CEO, and security escorted him from the very building he had built, brick by brick. The bitter taste of humiliation clung to his throat like smoke. He wandered the silent corridors of the now dark tower, feeling like an intruder in his own creation. Each flicker of the emergency lights whispering reminders of how quickly life could turn. As he reached the lobby, he noticed Mark, the elderly janitor he had known for years, quietly mopping the floor as if nothing in the world had changed. Mark looked up with gentle eyes, the kind that never judged or questioned, and simply nodded. "Long night, sir?" Jonathan forced a broken smile, unable to speak through the weight pressing on his chest. He stepped outside into the cold wind, the reality of homelessness and bankruptcy swirling around him. Yet, he couldn't bring himself to go home, not when the world thought of him as a failure. Driven by desperation, he returned to the building after everyone else left, searching for answers in the mountain of documents thrown into the trash by staff trying to erase his existence. That's when the elevator dinged softly, Mark stepping out with gloves and a trash bag. Stopping when he noticed Jonathan hunched beside a bin, the janitor didn't laugh, didn't pity him. Jess quietly walked over and began sorting the papers beside him, saying, "Sometimes, sir, the things we throw away are the ones that matter most." Jonathan didn't know whether to cry or scream. He was about to stand up, defeated, when Mark suddenly reached into the bin, pulled out a single crumpled sheet, dusted it off, and said, "Sir, you forgot this one paper." Jonathan frowned, confused, until he recognized the faint signature his father's on the document. He thought was lost forever, the original founding agreement of Hale Innovations, proving that Jonathan alone held final ownership of the company's intellectual property, something the board legally couldn't strip from him. His hands trembled, his heart raced. This paper, this one nearly discarded treasure, might be the key to saving everything. Jonathan's pulse thundered in his ears as he stared at the fragile document resting in his trembling hands. The legal foundation that proved he still owned the core patents and ideas that birthed Hale Innovations, the very heart of the company remained his. For a moment he stood frozen, overwhelmed by a whirlwind of emotion shock. Relief, hope struggling to bloom beneath the ashes of despair. Mark watched him with quiet understanding, giving him a respectful distance as Jonathan pieced together the gravity of what he was holding. If he had walked away minutes earlier, if Mark hadn't stopped him, that single paper had been shredded like everything else. His future would have vanished forever. Instead, an ember of possibility warmed him from within. With trembling breath, Jonathan rushed to the conference room, turning on the old emergency lights, spreading out the documents he salvaged, and crafting a plan that could reclaim everything he lost. He worked through the night, fueled not by revenge but by conviction. He had built the company once from nothing, could rebuild it again with the truth on his side. The next morning, he stormed into the board meeting uninvited, holding the founding agreement like a shield. His former partners froze as he laid the paper before them, their faces draining of color when they realized what it meant. They couldn't strip him of something legally tied to his name. Jonathan invoked his rights, announcing he would relaunch Hale Innovations independently, taking all intellectual property with him. Within days, the media coverage flipped. Headlines shifted from Billionaire falls overnight to Hale fights back with legal bombshell. Investors who once abandoned him began knocking at his door, eager to support the comeback of a visionary unwilling to die quietly. With Mark's help, Jonathan built a new office, small, humble, yet filled with determination. He hired back employees who believed in him, launched new technology using his reclaimed patents, and released a public message thanking an unnamed friend who reminded me that nothing truly valuable belongs in the trash. The world applauded his rise, but only Jonathan knew the full weight of what he owed to Mark. On the day he announced Hale Innovations' dramatic return to the global market, Jonathan walked into the janitor's room, where Mark was fixing a mop handle. "I want you to be part of the company," Jonathan said softly. "Not as a janitor, as someone who saved it?" Mark laughed gently. "I only handed you a paper, sir. You're the one who built the dream." But Jonathan shook his head, eyes misty, and replied, "You handed me hope." Months later, Hale Innovations surpassed even its former glory. And Jonathan never forgot the night everything changed, the night a billionaire lost everything but gained the one thing he never had enough of: gratitude. And as the story closes, dear viewer, remember this: sometimes miracles don't shout. They whisper through the simplest people in the quietest moments. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Hopeful Stories for more inspiring tales that remind you, hope is always just one moment away.